feel like this piece in particular really gets that grabs that sort of like theme. It's a bridge between the two, and I find that one of the largest factors in that is the way the main characters travel through the story. It's not like a lot of the classic stuff where they're off on an adventure. This is tension and fear, and there's so much tension in this piece that I feel it really reflects that beautifully.
Excellent. I agree. You know, imagine like music having connections to emotions and what you see.
God, that sounds insane.
Crazy. Okay, so assuming our technology continues to occasionally cooperate, we got a few things for us. We're all gonna we all decided we had like our faves, right, from the first turn, but I'll leave it was the original. It's the first one that we heard. And I know that the response to hearing this song for the first time was mixed. There was a wild array of different thoughts and opinions on what hearing this meant as far as what the music in the show would look like. And like many of the different like news drops and castings and whatnot that have come out for the show, there were people that absolutely panicked. Before we even listen to it, you know what? Let's listen to a little bit so we can. And I just remembered that I can't click on it; it's not going to help at all. Just a little bit of this to remind us what it sounds like, what we heard, what our very first thing was from the Wheel of Time, and then panelists, what were your first reactions to this?
I think just like everything.
We're going to play it first. Sorry, I don't want the music to interrupt you.
I'm excited. I was even in the right condition. You see that?
So good.
And then it's jumping to a random spot later on because we had a total change. Right? Goodbye. Okay. Everyone loves Kitty Nolan. All right, so Alyssa,
Sorry,
first
I
reaction.
just can't stop talking about it because I love it so much. But I can totally recognize that it takes a second to let it seep in and overwrite your original expectations, because that first motive is not something we hear a lot. We don't hear those intervals. It's foreign, it's unique, it's beautiful and haunting, but it's just not comfortable in our tonal mindset that we have ingrained in us based on what we hear throughout our whole lives. So if you didn't love it at first, that's totally understandable, but then it starts to grow on you, and you kind of learn a new language. You're learning a new musical language that's different and exciting, and brings a whole new world of tone to your understanding, and that lets you learn to love it like I did.
We're actually hearing a little bit of elementary Balinese music theory right there. That's a scale.
Yeah.
If you've ever experienced gamelan, I mean, the tonalities, the scales, the structures that exist in that music from Indonesia and the surrounding islands. It's called pelog. This is the scales, and this one is pelog selisir. That's just that little da 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 da. Some people hear this and they think, oh yeah, that's Phrygian. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's a Phrygian mode. I'm like, well, yeah, if we want to describe this in terms of like what we know as Western musicians, absolutely, it's closest to like Phrygian mode. But because of the other, like, just everything we know that Lauren did, I was like, listen to this. Oh, God, I know. I've heard this before. What is this? What is this? What is this? And I was in DMs with somebody. I'm like, oh my God, it's freaking Pello. And they're like, good for you. You know how somewhat you nerd out about something and someone's like, backs away slowly?
Yeah.
That was my experience. Vance, what was your first reaction to El Niño? Did you love it? Did you hate it?
Right, so I was one of those dirty, that's Phrygian mode folks out there, because that's the concept I think about it when I'm playing guitar. And I mean, like, obviously, I knew it wasn't exactly a perfect fit when I heard it, because it's clearly not a Western instrument starting off there. And I thought, well, yeah, they're probably pulling from world music and all sorts of capacities and structure and such. But one thing that I think the song does really well is it starts off with this kind of uncomfortable tonality that Western listeners are not very used to, and as the song progresses and we get into the chorus of the song, it kind of brings us home a little bit, shifting us into a more familiar tonality, and it becomes really anthemic. I think everyone can agree with that the chorus of All Night is an anthem to be belted at the top of your lungs in a massive group of people.
Okay.
So, yes.
Activate the flashlight.
That's it. That's it. So, I just like that he kind of composed it in a way that brought it home into a way, because folks I remember watching this as it had come out, and people were having all sorts of comments, but then when they get to the chorus, they would completely shift. Oh, now this is hitting me in a way that I understand. So I think that made it easier to process the song once you got there.
Yeah, and I remember like when it first came out, I was at work at the office and trying to listen to it with one earbud from my computer. And it was on Twitter, and it was very compressed audio. It was not great quality. So I was like, I don't know, man. And then on the way home, I played it in my car speakers, and it was amazing. But yeah, it just really has that kind of uncomfortable, different vibe at first. And I really think this was a great introduction to the music for Wheel of Time, because it perfectly encapsulates that with this sort of uncomfortable, tonality and stuff at the beginning, and then it really just draws you in, and it has this chorus where you have like a beat drop, and it's just like everyone is okay, I get it now.
Yeah.
And the female vocals and just the different instruments, and it's foreign, but it's like something you would sing. It's also familiar at the same time, which is really.
And I think he's been trying to teach us to learn to love other music styles that we're not familiar with. It's really making it more accessible to us, because we're learning to be comfortable with those tonalities, and I love that.
I'm not sure who I need to beg, borrow, or steal it from to get access to like the scores of these,
Right.
and like know what the actual instrumentation is, because like my ear, I'm like, I don't know what this string instrument is. I'm like, this could be like it could be a harhu, a Chinese instrument. It could be a guazhang. It could be something else. I don't know. I'll like have our best guesses, but when I first heard this, I was concerned. That was how I felt. I had been thinking about the music for the Wheel of Time for years at that point. Everyone was like, oh, who do you think is going to be cast as blah, blah, blah. And I was like, hey guys, who do you think is going to be the composer? Who's your top pick? Like 2019, I gave the tweets or something. Like proof, got the receipts. And I heard this, and I'm like, this sounds like an anime fanfic. The opening was like, okay, interesting, I like the tone, cool, sweet. But then there was like that dubstep-esque drop, right? We get to that first chorus, and I was like, what? Because I had an idea of what the music for this show should sound like, what there should be. And I thought like part of it was hitting for me, like, yes, we've got this non-Western vibe, we have this ballady style that I'm hearing. But then like the electronica threw me so hard. Especially but at the same time, we don't hear this actual song in the show. That's not in there, but the essence of it is. And I think that was my panic. That was my like moment of irrationality. I'm like, my God, when you hear this in the show, what is that? That's gonna feel so weird to me. I feel like it would have been like breaking the fourth wall.
Who was expecting electric guitars in the soundtrack? Not, I wasn't really. A few people were. Great job.
It wasn't even that. It was quite literally. It was just like it felt like what is this here? So in 30 seconds or less, anybody who wants to give us their reaction to Al Nato, Omar's going to come over to you. I'm going to be timing.
I was so thrilled when I first heard this song, because I really wanted Wheel of Time to be a global show, because the books are a global world. And when I first heard this, I was thrilled because this is global music. And I was like, yes, Lauren Baldwin gets it.
That was less than 30 seconds. Good job.
What really struck me, because I didn't understand hardly any words, obviously, in the old tongue, but when you heard Tarvalon, it beat at you the same way that Salon beat at people when she was trying to make them do what she wanted to do.
That's where that change in the rhythmic essence is too, that hemiola.
Well, that was also kind of the first clue that we had the old tongue being sung to us, right?
Yeah,
Because
right.
we didn't really
Got it.
know at first what they were doing, if it was just vocal, like, vocalizations for the melody, so.
All right, go.
I'm sorry, I'm a simple girl. I love a good beat drop. Play it in the club, play it at my wedding, play it everywhere. I can get down with this beat drop, absolutely. It is adventure, it is everything, it is a wheel time. Anyway, I'm done.
Yeah, can I say something?
Yeah, Omar, what was your reaction to all
I was actually at Comic-Con, and we're standing in line to get into the Wheel of Time panel, and all these people around me had my headphones on. I was like, Wheel of Time music! And I'm like, what's wrong with this? And I had it on repeat because we're waiting for 45 minutes. It was awesome. But, yeah.
Awesome. Any reactions? Yes.
When I found out about it, it was in the middle of a lesson with one of my students. And I was like, hey, you want to hear this? And he was like, yeah. And he was like a 7-year-old kid. And so I started playing it, and he was like, turn it up, turn it up. I actually disagree with the sentiment that it's uncomfortable. I think it sounds very warm and inviting, but with like a something that blocks you from being fully accepting of it. It's more like an intrigue thing, more than that it is uncomfortable. But yeah, a 7-year-old just got so excited when he heard it, and that just sealed the deal for me. That
Maybe use the
it's
word
good luck.
tension might be a better
Yeah.
word, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tense.
Love it. Perfect time. All right. And our last reaction. We have one more.
So this is actually the first time I've heard this song.
Oh.
So, but the thing is that when I first heard it, and I'm hearing these slides, what I felt is something is about to jump out at me from the shadows.
Ooh.
And if you were here in 2019 and our theme was the dark one, and you see the finger pointing down like this, that's what I felt.
Well, this kind of typifies the essence of what Lorne Balfe did with the Wheel of Time, with his composing. In his interview with Matt Hatch on the Dusty Wheel, said that he had created themes. It's almost like leitmotifs for locations, for characters, for other things. And I had in my head ideas of who and what those things would be. He obviously did his own thing with it. But Alito, this is Swan Sanche right here. If you remember that scene, Baby Swan, we hear that chorus. I'm sorry, Baby Swan. Don't you take
Not that kind of music.
We need something different stuck in our head. So when we have that scene with her on the boat, and we hear it's change the tempo of it. We hear it like a different texture, right? And so that was why my panic initially. Now in hindsight was just irrational. Of course they're not just gonna stick this song it's a big old anime battle. I mean, not that doesn't happen in the
Well,
real
I think that was a
time.
lot of people's fear as the first turn songs were coming
Right.
out, right? Because it's a concept album, they're concept
Yes.
songs. They're not
Yeah.
reflective of what was necessarily used in the show. I mean, some of them do appear
A little bit, yeah.
more wholly in the show than others, but for the most part, they recorded separate versions of all these tracks, and these are specifically for this album that they released for the hype, right? So.
And even us that understand that, sometimes we have to stop and be like, okay, take a moment, take a Xanax, whatever you need, just chill. And so Alyssa's actually going to bring us into this first one. Alyssa, do you want us to play a little bit of this?
Yes, please.
Our initial plan had been to just play you the clip that they have in the YouTube thing, but technology doesn't want us. So I'm going to drop the needle on this one for the vibes. So this is our opening, and then later on.
Heartbreaking song, you guys. If you've read the translation, it's up here. I'm just going to read really quick. The engine of my heart, enduring with your heart, pulled together, stays separate. Our souls strong, knotted while young, with the turning of the wheel, have no knowledge what they'll become. So that's the old tongue, or the translation from the old tongue. And this is technically Rand's theme, Young Love, but we mostly hear it when he's with Egwene. And we mostly hear it, not in this format at all, but just the vocals, even often without the text sometimes too. And it's just this gorgeous melody, and I love the idea of waiting to see how it evolves and whether or not it will remain Rand's theme or not. That is yet to be determined, but this goes along with what we've seen before. We've got this driving beat, and then we have this beautiful overarching melody, and then we've kind of got this wailing guitar in the background. I just love that so much. So yeah, we hear it when he's on the rock, and she comes and breaks his heart, and we hear it when they're up in Shutter Logoth, and we hear it, well, another time I'll get to that, but really quick. So in terms of how this song evolves, I just have to say this funny story really quick. We were talking about this, and Vance was like, well, Young Love will probably hear this song at least 3 more times. Trying not to do spoilers.
You know it's true.
But then, we're going back to how Lorne really researched his characters. The thing that really stood out to me in this piece particularly is that we have this juxtaposition of rhythm. If you notice at the beginning, we have, it's in 6/8, and it's 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2. So the emphasis on the beats changes by measure, and that was like my favorite thing, because at first I was like, I don't really see this being Rand's theme, but that works for me. I'm just going to leave it at that. I hope if you want to know why more, I don't want to give spoilers, but there's like these 2 rhythmic personalities in this piece. Okay, anyway,
for all of this, like, everyone has different opinions and interpretations of things. I mean, the Wheel of Time, we've been arguing and discussing this series for a few decades.
Right.
The music is no different. I mean,
people on Twitter about the Wheel of Time? Never.
like, I would not have guessed that this would have been Randolph Orr's theme until we saw this. Like that was who Lorne was thinking of. And like, yeah, like I can jive with that, but it's still it feels surprising to me. But at the same time, I mean, Randolph Orr is a character that contains multitudes, just like all of our characters in Wheel of Time. So.
And the scene is used different. Like, so I'm sorry, but we've got the when we hear it in different places, it resolves differently. Yes. So they can take that theme, and I just really feel like, as I was listening to it, I wouldn't have associated this with Rand, but I can totally see it. So, and then, does anyone have anything they want to say about this piece particularly before we move on to the next one?
Yeah, we got a couple more. Like, we're looking at our time, like,
I'm trying to get
talk
this
more.
Guys, I just did this whole page in like 30 seconds. So.
All right, 30 seconds, go.
Go.
Just very briefly on that associated with Rand. I think it does associate with one Rand very much.
Yeah, we're trying not to, say
but the characters develop throughout the story. We'll know this.
Yes.
Yeah,
No,
I do think it fits very well with where Rand starts.
Baby Rand.
Yeah, Baby Rand.
Baby Rand.
Hey, Juliet Howland's watching on Instagram.
Sorry.
Okay, this song slapped me in the face, and I said, thank you. Because, okay, here's the thing. Rand is or I wouldn't have anticipated it, no, not for my action hero Rand, but he's the moodiest, broodiest baby boy friend of mine in the books, right? And so having him have a moody, broody song makes sense to me. And he has so many moody, broody moments. So I'm like excited for those moody, broody moments.
But I can see this theme being, not like changing from moody, broody to being different later.
Yes, in various capacities.
Yeah.
It's easily adaptable into certain situations.
All right, 2 more quick, and then we will.
I'm going to do transition because I'm excited about it.
I love it.
I'm going to build on that for a second. I just want to mention that if you look at some of the word choices, they're actually doing a little bit of foreshadowing too. Like when they do Vinlay Rocher, which means stay separate, the Vinlay is derived from promise. It's like the promise of separation.
Ooh. By the way, this is Arella Sadai, Pavara as well on Twitter, who is one of our Old Tongue wizards, and has saved my bootay this weekend with a translation from Unsindai, which is up next. Go ahead.
Just based on what Nelson, I'm fully expecting a more realized, perhaps even an entirely separate theme for the dragon. Especially as we know, kind of from book readers, that the dragon, the character of the dragon takes on something so much bigger than Rand, the individual is. So I kind of hope, I don't know if it's going to come up, I kind of hope it mirrors what we get a little bit from Logain as our
Would you
first
like to?
exposure
It's
to
funny you
the
mention that.
You know what? I feel like we all collectively share things. Yeah.
So in terms of going back to Young Love really quickly, this was the most exciting thing for me because we have this beautiful theme, and there's just this heartbreaking moment in episode 7 with, well, you've all read. Oh, did you all see this? The TV series, yeah? Has anyone not watched it? Okay, good. So,
RIP your spoilers if you haven't. Like.
Okay, sorry. So in episode 7 we have the same theme, and it's only a cappella and it's in parts. It's Peter Cox's amazing voice and he's singing it, and it's when Rand goes down and he's talking to Gwen and she comes to him, of course. We know that. And you hear that, and then the beat starts to pick up. We hear the beat, and then the song in the score is called Revelation, and it moves and evolves into the Dragon Reborn theme, and it's just spectacular. If you're listening for that and you recognize it, it's like, oh my gosh.
So I'm gonna let this vibe for a second. I know it can be sometimes a little difficult for people of sensory processing to understand. I'm just gonna leave us a little bit of background for now. So, Aman Sindai, the Dragon Reborn, Logain theme. But, is it only?
It's used a lot in episode 7 and 8.
Say again?
It's used a lot in episode 7 and 8.
Yes.
So many variations.
Right.
That's my favorite.
Right. So, I mean, the idea of this, so Logain's theme for now, what the essence of this song to me is duality. You can hear it because it starts with this. Again, Peter Cox, absolute legendary. We have this flowing, and then underneath it, we get that more driving rhythm. We get the guitar. We end up with that percussive. It's aggressive, almost. In this way, it feels like it's anticipation, creating a sense of tension and expectation. And again, Lauren Donald doing his homework and connecting this to the essence of these characters and the stories. We don't know what's going to happen with Logain up Lauren. Yeah, go ahead.
So, actually, don't forget that this was actually the first piece of official music
Yes, it was.
and the title reveal.
And I hated it.
So, it was very polarizing. But it was just like 10
it up and down, man.
10 or 15 seconds, so it wasn't very good to make any opinions off of. But
Oh, God.
I just remembered that.
I heard him like, oh, this sounds processed, it's tinny, it's weird, I don't know what's going on, it sounds like it's fake. And then you hear it in context, like, okay, fine. Good job, Lauren, fine. Anybody who knows me at all, I'm an absolute sucker for a character like Logain, and to know that this song is also a theme with him in mind, and then later on that we hear it in conjunction, as Alyssa said, this transition into, the Young Love to the Dragon Reborn, these two songs that are so very like different from each other in a lot of ways. That idea of the youthful, almost exuberant, the frantic nature of Machine Kamel, and then this one with those two aspects, that duality of the placid, and then the driven. Sure, yeah, words are hard, but they're cool, and this. We don't know if it's the actual thing. We do our best. That through this age of war, through time, the mighty dragon reborn. And even on the soundtrack, the way that it grows into something massive and then just like pops off and then peters out into almost nothing. This particular song is one of the ones that I can just like listen to and just totally I have to stare into space while it's happening. You can't do something else while you listen to Aman Sindai. Maybe some of the other ones, sure, but not this one. It comes on and I'm just like absorbed. I'm compelled. Thoughts from either my panelists or anyone else on Aman Sindai and how this fits the character, doesn't fit the character, how you feel it fits into the song or into the show. We hear this in a lot of places.
So I have more of a question for you guys than I thought.
Sure, questions. We like this.
So I should preface this with, I am not a fan of the opening theme as much as you guys have attempted to make me love it. And I am wondering if you guys think that we are going to, now that the show is shifting slightly from Moiraine to Rand and the rest of the cast, do you think that the opening theme could possibly change from something like Moiraine's theme to something closer to this?
My first thought on this is, and we've in our discussions with this, is that these themes are very versatile in terms of, sure, maybe this is like, we put Loghain's face on this, but it's not just for him. When we hear some of these other songs, we'll hear they don't apply just to one really character, they're used in a variety of ways. So when we have Moiraine's theme, we can call it Moiraine's theme, but it doesn't belong only to her. It's used in a variety of ways, and I think that will become more apparent, and that the music itself is already in a place where the story is going. So, my opinion, I don't think that the opening theme will change. That's just where I'm at. Panelists, well, Omar's moving.
I also think, I do think that the actual visuals of the opening could change over the tapestry. Different things will be woven into it as the story progresses.
I think the theme could be rearranged and have other themes woven into it, and that's very likely. But in terms of just sort of like continuity for audiences, I think they kind of have to keep the same theme. Sorry. Maybe they'll make it better so you like it more later.
Debbie Downer. One comment this time. We've got a couple more songs to get through. We've only got about 8 minutes. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question. We've talked a lot about like online and in conversation about how much older the characters are than they are in the books. And I mean, for adaptation, like I'm fine with that. But how would the music have been like how is the music different because they're so much older? So we were talking about Rand being super moody, right? But I mean in this, you understand in the books when he's a child, right? In this though, like he's a man and he's a brat. Like I understand you 14, 15, 16-year-olds, but I mean he's 20 something, right? So how is the music different if they were younger, or how is it different because they're older?
My first thought is Rand's not that young at the beginning. I mean, he's 19 going on 20 at the beginning of the Egg World.
He's only like 2-3 years old.
Right, and the essence in the Two Rivers culture, I mean, he's a bit old to be unmarried, even. So his innocence doesn't necessarily come from his youth. It comes from how sheltered he was, and I think the music kind of reflects that just in how we see it in the Two Rivers in our next song that we're going to look at as well. That we have this more mature sound with something like Aman Sindai, where like we have that full orchestral nature, those more that duality, the aggression, and then with Machita Mel, like I said, that more excited theme, but also just the Two Rivers folks in general. I mean, we delve into a totally different style of music. I feel like this is a good transition, unless someone else had a comment on the random youth. All right, I'm gonna pull mine on you. All right, here we go. Golden Eyes, what's up? All right, and checking out our time here. We are down to about 6 minutes, so let's be quick. We got some stuff.
Let's get a little.
All right, you want to play some of this?
Yeah, just a little bit.
All right. So just so you know, remember what we're talking about.
Right.
Here we go. Here's Golden.
So of course it's still my pick. A lot of guitar in it. This is clearly Period's theme song, given that the translation means Golden Eyes. I picked this one just because I think it's very exemplary of the guitar usage within the series. It doesn't have any vocals applied to it, which I think is also fitting for Perrin, given his association with the wolves and how they, typically they don't actually use speech when they communicate. So I liked that little tidbit for him. What? Perrin communicate? What world is this? Well, he at least talks to wolves. But yeah, one of the elements that I really want to point out here is that the first time I hear this song is not actually specifically for Perrin. It's when they're coming down onto the wine spring inn at night, and then we're getting the interior of the inn shot. So they kind of use this song a couple of different times in different ways, and the various pieces of it throughout. So I just wanted to note that with the guitar, they have a specific tuning applied to it, known as Dadgad, which is kind of this folksy, like Irishy inspired guitar tuning. It's where a lot of like, you know, country music kind of developed out of it, along with the African influences that came in. So yeah, I really loved this piece and how it was just composed, and I like how it moves from like Pirin, Country Boy, from the Two Rivers into this more traditionally arranged orchestral words are hard piece as it moves through, and it grows in power, which I think is very indicative of a lot of Pirin's arc as we move through. So with that said, let's go ahead and pass it out to the room.
Maybe we'll take one comment on this.